in the nation's commercial capital, Lagos State, where the housing deficit is estimated at 2.5 million. Now, there have been several calls to bridge this gap through public-private partnerships. Now, these were some of the issues brought to the fore recently during the first real estate marketplace conference and exhibitions in Lagos, organized by the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority. Well, joining me now to discuss the real estate market in the state is the special advisor to the Lagos State Governor on Housing, Mrs. Toke Benson Awoyinka. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for joining us on the program. Now, recently, you had stakeholders in the real estate sector gather to discuss ways to address the housing deficit facing the state. But can you give us the major submission put together at that event?
Oh, thank you, and good morning, Lagos. So we, as a regulatory agency, we've been trying to regulate the market. We've been trying to sanitize the industry, especially in Lagos. And we thought, as regulators, we are also supposed to make sure that we give them a conducive environment to do the business. We're all aware that there's a deficit in Lagos, whether it is 2.5 million or 3 million. The idea is there that we all know that there's a deficit. So the marketplace came up last week in order to bring the developers, the various stakeholders in the industry to meet with the people of Lagos who are actually yearning for this housing. And I think the goal was achieved. We had a very successful conference where we discussed, amongst other things, apart from the deficit itself, we spoke about various other issues in the value chain of the real estate industry, the capacity building for youth and sustainable clean energy for the industry. We spoke about the capital market and providing solutions, financial solutions for the industry as well. And the governor was graceful enough to be there to speak to us and to also admonish some of the Lagos State government agencies to make sure that the practice of real estate is seamless and easy, where we have the private sector also collaborating with government to make sure that we bridge that gap in the housing industry. So it was successful. It was B2B. It was to make sure that the housing market comes together as that aim was achieved last week.
All right, now let's talk about some of the challenges facing the housing sector. Now, apart from the deficit, now we know that before now it has been some sort of free-for-all show in the sector with several sharp practices often reported. What game-changing strategy is being adopted to bring a change?
Yes, at the Regulatory Estate Authority, we have set up a portal where we want to register all sector practitioners. We have encouraged, we have spoken, we have cajoled, we have spoken extensively that there is need for us to be able to capture that data. Data is key right now. If we don't have the data of what you're doing as a developer, as a realtor, as an agent, or as a facility manager, then we would not be able to meet as government what we're supposed to do. So what we are doing is we're capturing the data of who is in the sector. We're taking it very, very seriously. We go out, we go and make sure that we see where your business is located. We do not want briefcase developers or briefcase agents where when anything happens in the market, we don't know where to find you. We've had couples of petitions against sector practitioners, and we're telling people we do not want you to deal with practitioners who are not registered with government. So we opened a portal at lagosstate.gov.ng, lasriwa.lagosstate.gov.ng, inviting stakeholders in the industry to register whatever products that they're doing, to register as practitioners so that we as a government can also promote your business. It's the World Wide Web. So people all over the country, people outside of the country, people in the diaspora can actually reach out to you through that medium. So those are one of the things that we've been trying to do, making sure that everybody who is into that sector or who is doing any developments, real estate agent, practitioner, developer, facility manager, we want to know who you are. We want you to register with the state government.
Well, what about the level of awareness? Now, of course, you're doing your bit by encouraging people to come in and register with the state government. But what's the level of awareness like? Also, talking about the potential buyers of these properties and all, what's the level of awareness like? How do we actually capture everybody to be aware that there's a thing like this going on with the state government?
So like every new thing in the industry, we're doing a lot of advocacy. We've started this advocacy since last year. we're doing a lot of advocacy. The pandemic stopped our progress for 7 months, but since then we were back on the streets, and the marketplace was actually another good place for us to let them know that this is what is going on in the industry, this is what is going on, this is what the Lagos State government is doing. We would continue with that advocacy. We tell our people, do not patronize agents or developers who are not registered with the government. Because when these practices, sharp practices happen, the only way we can get them is if we already have a database of them. We're going to probably by next year, we're going to do something like a roadshow in the diaspora, because we found that also that a lot of our citizens in diaspora want to come back home, but the first thing that anybody who is in diaspora wants is a house over their head. And they have fallen victim to a lot of sharp practices in the industry. So we are constantly engaging the practitioners in the sector and also the people of Lagos to let them know that do not deal with these people. When a practitioner approaches you and you ask him, can I see your last RIRA number, or can I see, are you registered with the state government? Once they're taken aback that the people are actually asking for that, then the practitioners will start to comply. But we are doing our bit in trying to make sure that the advocacy and the word is out there on the registration.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you have several petitions talking about sharp practices now, but what have you done to actually nip this in the bud? Have you made scapegoats of anyone, for instance?
Yes, we have. We've had several matters ongoing in the law courts. We've had a property in Ajao Estate forfeited to the state government, which we are going to sell, and we're going to reimburse everybody that was defrauded in that on that transaction. We also had a case last year of 255 people in Ketu Alakpere. We're presently in court. We have a case in Awoyinka about 145 people as well. We're presently prosecuting. So we're constantly prosecuting, and we're letting them know that we're going to follow the due process of the courts. We're going to make sure that we do everything as a government to make sure that those people who fell victim of those transactions are actually brought to book, and the people are actually reimbursed the monies that they have lost. So yes, we're making traction.
Now, past administrations have introduced a number of housing programs for the public. Of course, some were fully subscribed, while some are still empty as we speak. But are there plans by this administration to see that such structures are fully utilized to reduce the housing deficits?
So when the administration of Babajide Sanwo-Olu started last year, May, we inherited about 8 or more housing projects, which we are working on right now. Last year, so when you say they're empty, they're not empty. We're just putting the finishing touches there. Last year, October, I believe, we commissioned one of them. That's the Latif Jakonde Housing Estate in Igondo, which houses 492 families. We're going to commission quite a few this year. We have one coming up in Idale Badagry, that's 252 units. We have 136 units coming up in Ekmori. We have 100 plus units also coming up in Ekota. In May this year, we commissioned 2 projects on the Lekki-Aja axis. We commissioned 136 units on Freedom Road in Lekki, and about 100 and so units too in Igbokushu. So this year, hopefully before the end of this year, we want to commission, like I said, Ekmori, Ikota. Shangotedo has 774 units that we're also going to commission. We have 360 units in Igbogbo, and I can go on and on. We have 660 units in Agbowa Ekpe division. I can go on and on. So they're actually not empty. We're just putting finishing touches to them. As you know, they have been lying there for so long, and we want to actually put a roof over as many people as we can in the state of Lagos.
Now, you've talked about the several projects, housing projects scattered across Lagos State. And of course, yes, you say that you want to put a roof over the heads of so many families in Lagos. But then there's one thing that keeps coming to bear, and it's affordability. How affordable are these houses?
So most of the projects that we do at the Lagos State Ministry of Housing are actually social housing, affordable housing. We have a program we call the Rent to Own policy, which is actually midwifed by the Lagos State Mortgage Board. On that program, we expect you that whatever the amount of that house is, you pay 5%, a 5% down payment after pre-qualified. A 5% down payment is expected of you. and then we spread the rest of the balance of that property over a 10-year period. So we have homes like 1-bedroom units in Lagos for 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, depending on whatever area of Lagos that you're actually subscribing to. So they are quite affordable. The ones that government is doing are quite affordable. And we're also putting that structure in place where you can pay over a period of time. We know that it is not easy for people to come up with bulk money, and we're very sensitive administration. This has been ongoing in Lagos, but Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu has also taken it up upon himself to make sure that housing is one major component of the government that he's very interested in. And we started that. We started that with Igodo, and the rest of this other housing estates that I mentioned, we're also doing the same thing. We have the rent-to-own program. So we have people who can afford, who want to do the outright purchase. But we encourage people to do the rent-to-own because that is what makes it comfortable and easy for people to have a roof over their heads. So yes, they are affordable, and we have policies in place to help the people.
But what about the low-income earners? For instance, the market men and women, how do we also capture them? Because it's not everyone who earns a salary. It's not everyone who can actually come up with a certain amount monthly. So how do we capture people like this?
So the interesting part of it is that you do not have to be a salary earner to qualify for the rent to own. And that's why I spoke about the pre-qualification process. So what happens is the Lagos State Mortgage Board looks through your finances and sees which you're best suited for. So if, for instance, I'm a market woman and I earn a certain amount on a daily basis, they look through my account and see, okay, for whatever we have to have you pay, you must not pay more than 33% of that amount you earn monthly. So we go that far in making sure that it's not just for people who earn salaries. We want the market women, we want the union people who also are daily earners of income to patronize this projects. So that's why most of the time people ask us why you're not building in the high-brow areas. We're not doing mid-income. We do mid-income through our joint venture developers, which is the private sector. But for the ones that we as a ministry and as the government are doing, targeted towards low income and people who would ordinarily not be able to buy a home for themselves.
All right, now let's talk about another major issue now, and that's building collapse, which has been a recurrent incident in the state. How is the government engaging these professionals, the private sector, and everyone concerned to ensure that there is full compliance to construction regulations in the state?
Okay, well, you know, we have the Ministry of Physical Planning and the Lagos State Building Control Agency. Lagos State Building Control Agency is actually in charge of building collapse. And that's why we actually encourage our builders. When you want to build, you make sure you meet the Ministry of Physical Planning. Before you break ground, Lagos State Building Control Agency is supposed to be there. We have the material testing. So we've put all the structures in place, but we keep begging and hammering and telling our people that these processes are supposed to be followed. They're meant to be followed to avoid issues like building collapse. But most of the buildings that you have seen that have collapsed are buildings that have been probably 20, 30 years old. The terrain of the place, you know, Lagos is also a swampy area. The terrain of the place was not taken into consideration when those pilings or the foundations were being done. And us as a government, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we curb such things from happening these days. Our Ministry of Physical Planning is very, very active, and they're going all over Lagos to make sure that we put an end to such incidents in Lagos.
Because there are also reports of buildings under construction actually collapsing.
Exactly. So that's why we have the material testing. So like the governor said at the marketplace, we need you to help us as a government. When the practitioners or the builders cut corners, this is what happens. So we complain as sector practitioners that it takes a while for us to get all the permits that we're supposed to get. But at the same time, we do not provide the documentation and the things that we're supposed to do. So the governor was quick to say that, do not help us corrupt our officials. When we ask you to do these things, do these things. When we ask for 5 documents, do not bring 2 documents and believe that once you you pay your way through the system, you can get it done. Because at the end of the day, the people of Lagos suffer for it. So the governor has already said it in clear terms. We would no longer tolerate these things in the industry. And the Ministry of Physical Planning is on its toes right now, making sure that these incidents are a thing of the past in history, and they become a history in our development process.
All right, now we need to wrap up this conversation in just a minute. But just before we do, tell us, how is the state moving to tap into the 300,000 federal government mass housing scheme set to kick off this week? Please do that in a minute.
Well, Lagos is a very peculiar place. And when people say there's a project or housing thing going on in Nigeria, Lagos has to take a very, very particular place in it, because the land in Lagos is expensive. Projects that are built in maybe Zamfara for 2 million would not also be built in Lagos for 2 million naira. So those are the things there's some disparities and there's some things that we need to do to cross our I's and dot our T's to make sure that these things happen for us as well in Lagos. So of course, Lagos is ready and willing to tap into everything that the federal government and the other international agencies are doing. We are definitely ready to participate in everything that is being done, especially for housing in Lagos.
We'd like to thank you, Special Advisor to Lagos State Governor on Housing, Mrs. Toke Benson Awoyinka. Thank you for your time with us this morning.
Thank you.